If you're in the 99th percentile, you get 99 trust tokens. If you're in the 98th percentile, you have 98. So it's actually pretty close to one person, one vote, because everyone who votes are in like the 80 to 100th percentile anyway. So there's a very small differential there. But what the theory is at this current point is at scale that will help kind of Hello, welcome to episode 2. My name is still Reiki Corden. I will continue to be your host. And today we're going to dive right into the tools. So the first episode we were talking big concept, where are we headed, what's the purpose? Now we're going to get really practical and ground that and talk about the tools that we built today, how to use them, how to move through them, what they all do, etc. Because the main idea is if we're trying to create a new type of economic system or that rewards participation and regeneration and all the things that we were talking about, we need all the tools to be able to coordinate this ecosystem. So that's what we're going to dive into today. So if you go to explore.joinseeds.earth, this is our main knowledge base. If you scroll on down to section 5, you're going to see regenerative economy tools. And then right here, tools for regenerative economic systems. So this is where you're going to be able to access all these tools the same way I am showing you today. All right, so we have 6 major sections of tools here. So the first one is all the mobile and web applications. So this is all the interfaces for actually using all the tools. There are some more in the other tool sections, but this is the major categories of tools. 2 is organization and governance tools. So how do we create new organization coordination systems? Next is new economic tools. 4th is sense-making and tools to learn together. 5th is decision-making tools. 6th is banking and financial tools. So those are the 6 major categories where all the tools kind of fall under. So we're going to dive into the mobile and web apps right now. We talked about the Seeds Light Wallet a little bit in episode 1, so we're not going to touch on it too much more here. You can kind of see here the 4 major things the Light Wallet offers, which is huge, is participation and governance, social key recovery, meaning you can assign your friends and family to recover your keys should you lose them. This is really big and important because then it helps people avoid the oops, I lost my private keys thing that keeps happening in Web3. And then you can send a variety of ecosystem tokens. So we're showing Telos up here to say any token that's on Telos, which is our main blockchain, which we'll get into, any token that the communities are creating for their local currencies that you're creating within your DAO or your DO, any of the tokens that you're using in your communities within the Seeds ecosystem, you can use the Light Wallet to be able to receive, send, and do all the basic features you want to do in a wallet. All right, so you can look a little bit more into the wallet here, and there's a couple how-tos on doing the basic stuff. So you can find links to Apple and Android, and you can see the open source code if you want to fork it or contribute to it in any way. Next up is the Global Passport. Now there is a mobile app for the Passport too, but we're moving to be full website. And they're actually updating a new website within the next couple weeks, so I'm a little preemptive here. So I'm only going to briefly show you this tool because it's going to change a lot. But this is the Passport that we've been working with for the last few years. So many of you might already be familiar with this, but here you have a wallet where you can plant seeds and unplant your seeds and gather your harvest and doing all your basic wallet stuff. You have a profile where you can update your profile and your picture. You have a community section where you can invite your friends and you can manage your invites here. So if you've sent out some invites that you want to retrieve, you can click here down to manage your invites and get them back. Here you can set up your organization account. So that's how you're making those different accounts from your individual account to your business account. And then you can start contributing in those different ways. And you can actually explore your contribution scores here by clicking on this and exploring what each one of these contribution scores actually means. Ooh, what is reputation, etc. All right, you can sign up to the newsletter and the security section. So this is where you can back up your private key. So, and the upcoming tool that I'm going to share with you, any of the tools where you're needing your private key, you can grab your private key from your Passport here, or the same thing in the wallet, go to the profile section, grab your key, because then you're going to need that for the next tool that I'll share with you. And this is where you go to get it. Okay, so this also has an engage section, so a little bit of a forum where you can upvote and comment and share things. You can manage your topics and decide what types of information that you want to have in your feed. And all right, so let's say I've already managed all my topics. Then you can come over here to vote. And if you're a citizen, this is where you go to participate in governance. You get a countdown timer telling you when the new voting cycle starts and ends. And you can go back and check out other proposals, the ones that we're evaluating, upcoming proposals, etc. Okay, so that's the basics of the wallet in a nutshell. And again, all the open source code for all of the tools can be found here if you want to participate in building or go take a look at the code. You can also explore here for a quick overview of what you can do and a couple explainers. These are some explainers with the old app, and we're going to be getting rid of the app, and we'll do some more desktop explainers once that's released in a few weeks. So by the time you might be watching this, we might already have that new app, but the link to either of them is always going to be here. Okay, so this is the main blockchain signer for the rest of the EOSIO ecosystem. So Seeds is built on top of the Telos blockchain right now, but we can actually be compatible with a lot more, which we can get into later what that all means. But here, if you get this tool, this is the main wallet for when you're on your computer or even on your mobile. There's a mobile app for Anchor as well. Then you can use all the other applications in the Telos ecosystem. And we're going to talk about a few of them down here, but I highly recommend getting this wallet. And it's also for resiliency. You know, the Seeds wallet, which we're going to use just the same here, where you're going to be able to use your Seeds wallet to sign into all the different apps. What if that goes down or something happens with that wallet and there's a bug? So this is why we want some resiliency in the ecosystem. And this is a different wallet that you can set up and use to be able to log into all the tools as well. So this is what decentralization is all about, where there's not one core piece of infrastructure that we have to rely on, there's a lot. So this is a second wallet that we really highly recommend. And you can come check out the website here, you can download the wallet here, and there's a step-by-step process for how you actually get it all set up and some basic stuff that the tool can do. So you can explore all that here. We're gonna keep going. DAOs and do's. So this is where you can learn about the do tool that we had briefly touched on in the previous episode. You can find the video that gets into it in a little bit more depth. And then a quick overview of how to actually set up a do. So this is more from the social side, a group of people coming together decide how do we make decisions, how do we do governance, how do we do contribution accounting and all of that. This is kind of a step-by-step guide helping groups who are getting together navigate some of those questions and get started. Then it gets down into some of the features that the tool offers, which I'm just going to jump to the bottom and actually show you the MVP. So you can explore the MVP just like I can here by clicking here. So this is where you can explore all the DAO prototypes, what we're building. So you can come here and check out the MVP, what's coming next. If you want to know for your community right now what is coming for Hypha, you can come click on the MVP, click around and see what we're building. If you want to know going forward, everything that's going to happen, click on the standard and you get an idea of where we're going. So you can come here yourself, explore with them more. If you want a guided overview of what's going on here, just come back to this video here and you can watch me go over it. All right, so we're going to keep going. Next thing is we needed integrations to be able to accept payments. Great, so we're building this new financial system. If we're building a new financial system, what good does it do if I can't accept it as a payment? So we needed to have really simple, seamless ways for people to be able to accept seeds on their website, make QR codes so that people can pay in person and all of that. So you can explore those tools here. So if you click here for business integrations, you actually come to the toolkit and you can get links to all the different ways that you can integrate seeds into your site and business. If you want a video exploring it more, there's a video, and it's really easy to do. The demo, they actually went from not having it at all to setting it up all in about 5 minutes. So you can get a good overview of a lot there. Something else that's really awesome is a marketplace. Great, so we're building a new financial and economic system. We're trying to localize our economies. How do we do that? We need to have marketplaces to be able to interact. We need to meet each other. We need to be able to exchange. Exactly, so that's what local scale is all about. So again, as always, you can get a quick overview of what the tool offers, or we can just go to the tool itself and I'll show you what it's all about. All right, so we can actually explore some bioregions, and this is the idea behind local scale, is it's about bioregional regeneration. So local scale kind of looks at it and says, okay, what bioregion are you a part of? Cool, let's put that into a map and help people find each other within their local bioregions. So let's actually explore one. This one's featured, so it must be good. And then within your bioregion, you get to see all the different organizations and different groups and markets or whatever's going on there. So you actually see there's quite a bit in this bioregion. Let's go in there and see what's going on. So you can zoom in at the map, look around, see what different projects there are, and see what they're up to. Great, so this is going to be able to help you find different people in your community. So we want to use local scale when we're doing those bioregional activations, have them join and set up their marketplace and their organization and everything within local scale, which we're going to get into what that looks like. So if you click up in the top right corner, I can't because my face is blocking it from you being able to see. But anyway, if you click in the top right corner, you can go down to integrations and tools. So as you can see here, you can actually use Stripe payments. So this is helping kind of bootstrap as Seeds becomes a more prevalent currency. People still need to accept payments in central bank currencies. So you can integrate with Stripe to be able to accept central bank currencies as well. And then you could turn on Seeds also. Then if you go back up into your menu and you switch over to tools, you get to see all the different tools that we've built with local scale. So you can see that we have a farmer's market manager, a marketplace manager, local events manager, an eco-stay manager, and a seed exchange manager, which will be, a lot of these, we're just building them. Some of them work, the seeds exchange manager doesn't, so this one's still early. But the farmer's market and the marketplace manager and the eco-stay manager are all active. So we'll dive into what those look like right here. So I can actually go down to my farmer's market. Here's my vegetable inventory. So I can put in my tomatoes. I can say my price per weight is 10 for the pounds that I'm showing. And then I get to put in how many I have. So it's a very simple UI to be able to set up your farmer's market inventory. And then as a bioregion, every organization and local farmer that is putting their inventory there, when people are searching their bioregion for buying produce locally, they get to see the inventory of all of the farmers that are within that bioregion. So that's really cool. So you can add your fruit, a custom inventory, and anything else that you want to sell locally, right? Then you can do a marketplace. So you can come over here to your marketplace setting, and you can add other things. If you have taxes and delivery fees, and delivery fee if an order is above a certain amount, the minimum amount per order. So you have some basic settings that you can adjust that we found to be necessary in order to be setting up marketplaces. Then you can come down here to your product list and then add some products. So this is how we can start having a marketplace today where you can accept and send seeds as a payment. You can accept and send local tokens, which is the local currency within the local scale ecosystem, which is actually how we scale as an ecosystem, because every organ that I was talking about in the Seeds Commons and ecosystem, they can all have their own token for when you're contributing to that particular aspect. So the first people who are setting up their marketplaces within local scale, those are the ones that are going to start earning local tokens. And then they're going to figure out the tokenomics of local token and what that all means later. That's kind of part of the evolution and discovery of what's happening here. But if you want to start earning some local tokens and get rewarded, like I have for being able to help out and help make this platform come to life. So that's where local scale is at today. It's kind of working in a lot of ways, but it's not perfect. None of these tools are. There's going to be a couple bugs, I'm sure. Help us find them, but come on in, explore your dashboard, start your journey here, start setting up your bioregion, which we can go right back to here. And we can start organizing locally. So that's what local scale is all about. And you can see a whole bunch of different organizations that have also been integrated into the ecosystem. So a lot of fun stuff there. Okay, so we'll come back to here. Next up, we have Telos Decide. So this is maintained by the Telos Foundation, and it's a governance tool. So you can actually come to it right here. So you can manage your profile, blah, blah, blah. You can join some groups. You can manage tokens. So you can actually create new tokens here. If you want to create a token on Telos, awesome. You can come here and go through the process of creating your own token. You can join some groups and start doing, your own local governance context. And this is all happening today, right now. So you can see some experiments and some other groups that are coming together here and setting up their own containers for governance. So what are you actually going to be able to govern as a container? Let's explore some of those. So here's the Telos worker proposal system. The Telos worker proposal system is how Telos pays for those contributing to the Telos ecosystem. So even within Seeds, you can come here and you're like, hey, I want to build an app for Seeds, but that would be good for all of Telos as well. You might be able to come here and create a proposal. You can actually walk through the process right here. So you can come here and say, I want to make a proposal. You can say how you want the voting method to actually work. 1 vote per account, all tokens split to each vote, quadratic voting, etc. And this is how they plan to evolve Telos Decide, is to be able to have a whole bunch of different voting methods right here that you can use. Of course, a description of the vote, what's going on, what treasury it's affecting. So this is how groups right now today can set up their own DAOs, just like all of these groups have right here. So if you're doing it to the Telos worker proposal system, then you would choose the Telos governance token. So it actually shows how many of each of those governance tokens are distributed. So a lot of those groups look like they're just getting started because they have none, etc. So then you can create a proposal if I had filled it all out, and then it could go up to vote for those people who are holding the Telos governance tokens, which is everyone who has Telos tokens. So this is how you can start new governance systems today using some of the tools within the Telos ecosystem. And we're talking with Telos to see how we can start merging tools a little bit more effectively. So we're not creating too many duplicates, but rather creating a resilient diversity of different ways of setting up governance containers, and experimenting with creating new economic systems and all that stuff we're doing here. So highly encourage going and checking out the tools by Telos. So as always, you can log into that app using the private key from your password or passport or wallet. So if you go to your settings, grab your private key, you can use it to log into these different places. So here is one for more general blockchain stuff. So we're going to go there and I can just walk over it. So this is, again, really Telos related. So if you're looking at the blockchain foundation, because every account in Seeds is also an account in Telos, which means you get to participate in all the governance and stuff there, should you choose to. So you can come here and you can manage your keys. So you can actually regenerate your keys, change them. So if you think your private key has been compromised, you can actually create new keys here for you. You can vote. So this is how you can pick the different block producers who are on Telos. So this is the governance, this is the governance of the technical layer. So what sits under the whole Seeds economy is how the database is maintained, which is where Telos comes in. And this is how people are voting for the different block producers in Telos. So that's how it works in the Telos ecosystem, and why transactions are able to be free and so cheap, and all of this is, it's called delegated proof of stake, where all people who own tokens in the Telos ecosystem vote on who they think are the most well-suited to produce blocks for the Telos ecosystem. And their decisions could be on anything. They want to make it geographically diverse to make sure that it's really decentralized across the globe. So if one nation state tries to ban it, it's not going to affect it. And you can see over here where all the different block producers are located across the globe. So it does actually look like they're pretty distributed globally. You can actually understand the organizations like Telos Green. They're wanting to put a lot of funding towards making Telos a carbon negative platform, which it already is right now because of efforts from a lot of different block producers and seeds. A lot of grants and seeds have gone out to plant trees and do stuff. And since we're using a proof of stake model, we don't have proof of work. So in Bitcoin, incredibly energy intensive. Telos is orders and orders and orders of magnitude more energy efficient than the proof of work blockchains. So it's one of the main reasons why we actually launched on Telos. And it's able to be free because what Telos does is it just inflates the currency supply a little bit each year, and then it gives those to people who are providing this service. So you actually see how much Telos they're going to be rewarded every day for providing this service of producing blocks. So that's a really nice way of looking at it, is we're saying you're providing the ecosystem a service, you're maintaining the database, you're providing reputable contributions in other categories, then we want to support you. And then if they get enough votes from the community, then they just get paid out for providing that service. So actually see what's happening here with the block production. The last thing I wanted to show you is you have a main dashboard here that shows everything that's happening in your account. And you can come down to your wallet here, and then you get to see all the different transactions you've made. So everyone can come in here and make their own transaction graph and see all the different people that they've sent seeds and tokens to and from. Then you can come down here and see all things that are happening on chain. So your DAO stuff, when you're sending tokens to people, everything that's happening within your account, you can come down to here and check out the blockchain. So this is your own personal blockchain explorer for your account. Okay, so that's kind of what I call the blockchain command center for those people who are new to blockchain. Okay, let's keep going with the tools. You can explore more applications here. So you can explore the Telos ecosystem and see all the native applications across a whole bunch of different categories, and the Ethereum virtual machine applications across a bunch of different categories. So again, your Seeds account works for all of these different apps. So when you come in here, you can use the same account you're using and log into all these different things. And highly recommend getting the wallet signer right here called Anchor if you're going to explore more applications, because most of them are going to integrate to that one wallet so that you don't have to take your private key and put it into all those apps, because that could be risky. So that's the point of having this wallet signer here, is that then you only trust this one wallet, which is pretty reputable, and they only keep the private key on your device anyway. So how it works is your key stays on your device, and any of these applications you go to, the best practice is for them to ask your device to be like, hey, could you sign this on your device to make sure that you are who you say you are, or you can approve this transaction. And then it happens on your device and you're like, yep, they have the private key, and then that certificate is sent back. So long story short, it's just how you keep really good security is by keeping your private key only in like 1 or 2 applications, and then using those applications to sign everything, because then they don't have access to your keys, which is really important. So that's what this wallet is all about, and I highly recommend doing it. And the Light wallet is serving the same purpose for the Seeds ecosystem. Okay, so that's some of the applications and how to use them and a little background there. One more thing on private keys, since this is kind of a general overview. Your 12 secret words is your private key. It's using a decryption generator to create 12 words for you. But then all you do is you take those 12 words, and then it just gives you that private key. And that private key is that long string of random numbers and letters that you get out of your wallet and your passport. So that private key is the access to all of your wallets and accounts and everything. That's important to really keep that safe. And then, on top of keeping it safe, come here and set up social key recovery. So then if you do lose your private key, or if you do somehow lose access to it, then your friends and family can generate a new key for you. Because that's really what's happening, is you can say, hey, I can let 3 of 5 of my friends, if they come together and they all sign this action, which is called a multi-signature contract, which is really cool because you can do a ton of stuff with that capability. But anyway, if they come together and they all agree that I've lost my key and they want to make a new one for me, then it automatically sets up a new key for me. And that's really powerful. Okay, now we're going to get into organization tools and basic building blocks. So, blockchains, we're not married to one particular decentralized ledger. It just serves a tool and a need within our ecosystem. So what we look to when we want to integrate with more decentralized ledgers, which we'll talk about later because we've built the technology to be able to integrate with more blockchains should we want to, what we're really looking at is what's the energy consumption? Is it wasteful? Because if it is, then it's not regenerative and maybe we don't want to support it. What's the wealth distribution look like? Because if it's concentrating wealth into a small group of people who are already wealthy, then it's not socially regenerative and maybe we don't want to support it. What's the voice distribution like? How is decisions made in the network? Is it direct governance like we were just showing Telos is? Or is it something else? Right, so the voice distribution is really important because who controls the network? Who's able to make decisions? So these are the main things that we look at when we say, is this decentralized ledger something we want to integrate with? So in this way, we're not being married to one particular blockchain and ecosystem. We can integrate with a lot of ones that are doing things in a regenerative way. So you can see a little bit of a roadmap of some of the different blockchains we plan to integrate with if everything aligns. So what's another building block that we made? We made a bunch of different account types and badges. So what we were talking about before is how do we distribute money just to businesses? You need a primitive that says this is a business. So we created that. We have a business account type. So I showed you in the passport where you can actually go and set up your own organization account. When you join Seeds and join this whole ecosystem, your account is your individual account. And then you can move up to visitor, resident, and citizen and earn these different badges. So your individual account, which has its own private key and way of logging in. So all of these they all have their own private key, their own accounts, their own ability to send and receive tokens. But then that account can have badges attached to it. So as an individual moves from visitor, resident, and citizen, they earn that badge, which then gives them more rights and responsibilities and privileges and all that stuff. Same with organization. So as an organization earns these additional badges as they move through the process of becoming more regenerative for the world, then they can earn more rights and responsibilities, more bonuses when they're earning seeds, when people are buying from them, etc. Same thing with regional accounts. That's the other primitive we made, is the idea to have this is a region, a group of people coming together for a shared purpose within their community. Local scale and us are working on bioregions, so looking at that as a biological context. But within seeds, a region could be anything. There could be seasteading that's not attached to any particular piece of land. It could be nomads that are global and they just want to have the nomad community. So these are different account types that can earn seeds based on how regenerative that community is, which we talked about a little bit in episode 1. But you need this account type, and then we could start adding badges too. And that's something that we've yet to really explore in full detail, is what type of badges are we going to apply to regions to track benefits to people and planet. And then of course there's system accounts. And system accounts are like the ones that run the harvest, or they control the inviting process or anything like that. And official accounts end in .seeds. So no one can make a .seeds account except the seeds account creator, which is the seed system itself. So that's how you know if it's an official account, if it ends in .seeds. So if you're engaging with any accounts and you're looking on chain, you're like, hey, this is saying it's a system account, but it ends in something else other than .seeds. So it's like seeds, official account. That could be a spammer or a scammer trying to do something and trying to trick you. So you know if it's .seeds that it's not a scammer because no one's able to create .seeds accounts. So this is a part of a security feature and a primitive that we made. Great, so those are kind of account types and badges. That's a tool now within the Seeds economic system, and we have all of the code and stuff for it within the Seeds ecosystem code. All right, so we're gonna keep going. Decentralized identity. So this is us building reputation. So you have those badges that you can earn as you move through the ecosystem and gain more reputation, but we also have a vouching process and a flagging process. So you can vouch for people and build their reputation, or you can get flagged and flag other people and harm their reputation, or reduce it rather. So this is how we do a kind of a web of trust system, where it's a trusted thing where we're vouching for each other. And if you vouch for someone and they ended up getting fully flagged, which means enough people have flagged them, and you can look at what that actually means in the Seeds guide where it talks about the settings and details for that. But if someone gets flagged enough, then everyone who vouched for them is going to lose reputation too. So you want to be careful who you're vouching for, because if you vouch for someone who's not reputable, then that could hurt your rep, just like in our actual communities. If you go into your friend group and you bring in this person who ends up stealing from everyone and causing a bunch of drama, that's going to end up affecting your reputation too. So we mirror that in these systems here. Badges. So we talked about badges a little bit, but there's an infinite variety of badges that the Seed citizens can create. For example, there's a discussion at one point being like, hey, a regenerative economic system would value the work of motherhood, because that's really important. So what if we have this motherhood badge, which for the first 2 years after giving birth, you hold this motherhood badge, and that gives you a whole bunch of perks and bonuses and maybe even a basic income or something attached to it. So that's the exploration that we can explore here, is what are different badges that we want within our ecosystem. One common one is, you saw that this economic tool section itself is, quote, badge governed. So if you come up here to the top, you see that it's badge governed. So once Seeds has its own DAO, which hopefully is coming within the next couple of weeks, then we're gonna have this badge called what do we want to call it? I think it's called Knowledge Base Steward. So you have a Knowledge Base Steward badge. And if you're holding this badge, then you're able to make changes to the knowledge base here. So that's how the community can make sure that whoever's the one, controlling the narrative in their knowledge base, that's also decentralized and it's governed by the people, because they can remove badges from people, they can add badges to new folks, etc. So that way, when someone's telling the official story, that's actually being reflected by everyone who's able to vote, saying, yep, we like that person, we like how they're telling the story, and we want to keep giving them this badge because we feel like they're accurately representing us. So we can use badges for that. So badges are a primitive for a whole lot of different things that we might want to build. Tokens. Tokens is another primitive that we made. There's a couple different types of tokens within the Seeds ecosystem. So we have currencies and assets. So you're probably most familiar with this type of token, Seeds, for example, is a currency token. It's meant to exchange value and distribute value back and forth. So these ones can be purchased and sold. That's one of their main use cases. And they can be distributed and exchanged. Again, one of their main use cases of money is that you can buy it, sell it, trade it. Okay? But then you have governance tokens. And they're the exact opposite of that. They cannot be purchased or sold. They can only be earned. And they're used to distribute voice and governance rights amongst members. So there's a different token for tracking who has a voice in governance. Every DAO gets to kind of come up with that decision themselves. Everyone who's making their own Hypha DHO gets to create their own voice tokens. And then there's a Seeds voice token, which we call Trust. So Trust is the token within the Seeds ecosystem for governance. And how Trust is earned is how much your contribution score is. And right now we've made it really simple. If you're in the 99th percentile, you get 99 trust tokens. If you're in the 98th percentile, you have 98. So it's actually pretty close to one person, one vote, because everyone who votes are in like the 80 to 100th percentile anyway. So there's a very small differential there. But what the theory is at this current point is at scale that will help kind of redistribute it so that there's more, voice leaning towards people who are contributing the most. And maybe we want to make this more exaggerated. Maybe we want to have the differential even wider as you move up into the 99th percentile. Maybe we want it to go exponential or something. But this is all stuff that we get to, experiment with and tweak as we get going. What we've done here is we built the primitive that allows us to experiment with that. And then finally, we have coordination points, such as the regenerative contribution scores and gratitude. Points cannot be purchased or sold, only earned, just like governance. And they're used to distribute and track value. So for example, contribution scores. If you're earning a bunch of points because you're contributing in a bunch of different ways, that's sitting in your account, kind of like a token. You can see your contribution points build up, but you're not able to sell them. You're not able to send them around. You can't buy any of them. You can only earn them with the only way that they can be earned. But the system itself can then look at the flows of those currencies and distribute another token, such as seeds. So for example, we'll use gratitude. Gratitude was we can actually come down to gratitude whilst we're talking about it. All right, so we can actually go to the article right here. So you can explore decentralizing our economies with gratitude and go through this and see what the gratitude token looks like in more detail. Highly recommend this because it helps set the stage for what we're talking about when we're discussing rethinking how we coordinate at scale. And this is a little bit of an exploration into that. But essentially gratitude is, we were thinking, how do we account for the non-objective contributions to society? Contribution scores work great for things that we can objectively measure. We can track, hey, are more trees in the ground now than they were yesterday, right? But how do we track some of those social contributions that are hard to measure? What about the things we don't want to measure? So this is where gratitude came in. We said, what at the beginning of every cycle, and again, cycles start and end at the new moons, everyone gets 100 or 200 gratitude tokens. And how it works is citizens right now get 200 and residents get 100. And these tokens mean absolutely nothing if you hold on to them. They only mean something once you send them to somebody else. So in that sense, it's like real gratitude. Gratitude only means something if you're sending it, if you're giving it. If I compliment you, then you feel good and I feel good. And that's the other gift of gratitude, is it's non-zero sum. We can both feel good about it. So we actually baked that into the gratitude protocol where it doesn't cost you anything. If you hold on to these tokens, it means nothing. Like they're just going to reset and you're going to get another 100 or 200 next cycle. Same thing. And they don't add, you're just reset back to 100, 200. So it doesn't cost you anything. And you can actually earn more value for actually participating in gratitude. So giving gratitude is a way of earning value. So we made it so that giving gratitude and receiving it is both reciprocal. So what we do is we actually set up a pool. And we talked about this a little bit in episode 1. But there's a pool of seeds that every cycle, it distributes those tokens out to people who earn gratitude. So this is a way of capturing anything that people are grateful for. Someone shows up and they have a beautiful conversation with somebody else and they're like, oh, that really helped me work through something I was working through. I'm going to acknowledge you for that. That's a contribution to society. You felt it was valuable. So this is a way for communities to start rethinking what's a contribution to my community and how do we distribute value for people contributing. And it's just another experiment that we're working on right now. Okay, economic simulators. We're talking about building new economic systems. It's really important that we can test some of these assumptions before we put it into action, so we need to have simulators. So let's actually show you what this one looks like. Let me log in. I already have the Anchor wallet, so it logged me right in. But here's the dashboard for our simulator. You can actually come into here, put in all the assumptions. So let's say we have 1 million people in our economy. We have 100,000 organizations. We have 100 bioregions. Let's say our volume is growing at 1.2. That's pretty small growth. Great. Okay, so we have basic growth mechanics set up. We can come down here to the seed bank, seeing if tokens are coming in and out of circulation from the bank. You can see how many seeds were removed from being planted or burned or going into exchanges, how many seeds were introduced, coming in from exchanges and being unplanted, because all of this is about balancing our economic system. So we've talked about that before. What we want to do is we want to balance the economic system on the right with the financial system on the left. Because if our economic system and financial system, our economic system is how much goods and services are being exchanged. And they're being exchanged with money. So if the economy is growing, it has a higher demand for money, which is our financial system, how much money is in circulation. And if we can keep the demand, i.e. the economy for money, and the supply, i.e. how many currency units of money we have, stable and balance, then the value, the intrinsic purchasing power of that currency remains stable. So this is how we want to create a better, stable currency, right? So it has no relationship with the dollar or other fiat central bank currencies. It's saying we're going to grow our currency relative to how much our economy is growing or shrinking. And that only applies for seeds that are in circulation, because you can only meet the demand of buying things if you can acquire that currency and do stuff with it. But if a token is planted, it's locked up, it's staked, you're not able to do anything with it, then it can't meet the demand for a growing economy. So it's out of circulation. So this is the basic principles behind our economy. Is we can look up here, what is our economy? So we actually, QEV is qualifying ecosystem value. It's an obnoxious term because we're actually looking at a subset of transactions within the economy that are most likely to be real. And you can look in the Seeds guide to understand how we've done that. And that's to get rid of a lot of the gaming and fraud and just sending tokens back and forth and all this stuff that can make it look like we're growing an economy when we're not. So we only look at a subset, and then we look at the percent growth of that subset to then extrapolate to assume how much our whole economy is growing. So if we can look at this small subset of transactions that we're pretty positive, we know these are real transactions and they're growing at 10%, then we can assume that our entire real economy is growing around 10%. And we can get more nuanced and actually talk about how many people are transacting, how much they're transacting, how many organizations are transacting, and how much on average, etc. So that sets up our basic economy. And then we go through to see how many seeds were removed, how many were introduced, and all of this together helps us come up with what is the harvest. So we're actually going to run it. So our calculations said that our economy grew by 2.5%. So our current economy is at 5.6 billion, is what it's saying right here. And our current currency amount is 3.2 billion. So we needed to grow by 2.5%. So we decided, all right, over the next 3 cycles, we're going to grow at that rate. And that means over the next 3 cycles, we're going to create 224 million seeds. So every season, we're going to create this much. Every cycle, every lunar cycle, new moon to new moon, we're going to create 75 million new tokens. Okay, where are these 75 million new tokens coming from? This goes back to that initial graph where we have the 25% of this to that, and we're funding all of it. This is where you actually see that in action. So I talked about it a little bit, but this is how we get rid of feedback loops that tend to concentrate wealth, is this percentile distribution. And you see what that looks like here. This is the money that's going to people. So all the seeds that are coming out to people. If you're in the 99th percentile of contributing in the people account, if you click on it, it actually is going to bring up a graph down here and show what it looks like over time if you run multiple of them, so you can start tracking trends. But anyway, so if you're in the 99th percentile, in this scenario, there's 10,000 people who are in the 99th percent. There's a total of 456,000 seeds coming to these people. So everyone in the 99th percentile earns 43. 98th percentile earns 43, 92 to 97, etc. So you can see it's really egalitarian. And what's great is when we run this and we extrapolate this model out further, it tends to reduce inequality and balance out the distribution of value within your culture whilst still being meritocratic. You know, if you're contributing more in the 99th percentile, we still value that more than if you're in the 96th percentile, etc. And then we could even have a cliff where we can assume that maybe in the bottom 10 percentile or whatever, we just know that those are all fake accounts and dummy accounts. So we can actually cut it off and say if you're in the bottom 10th percentile, you get no seeds. And we could start, tweaking it further if we need to. But this is the basic primitive, again, is this percentile distribution. Same thing for organizations. If you're contributing in the 99th percentile, it says there's 1,000 orgs doing that, 300,000 organizations, and they're getting 293 per cycle. And in this particular scenario, they'd be closer to $5 because circulating currency, the current demand for that currency, they're roughly worth about $5. If this is ecosystem value in dollars, which in this particular scenario it is, we're using that as a kind of a grounding point to help people conceptualize this a little bit better. So in this particular scenario, we're saying if all things are balanced, this organization's getting about $1,000 worth of value for participating in this economic system. This would be as if, central banks, they made tens of trillions. What if they gave that out to all the organizations that were part of that economy? All the people who were part of it. That's all we're doing here, right? So it shows you how much those organizations can earn. And then same thing for regions. This is the region accounts. We use that same kind of protocol here. So we're saying here, this region's going to get some funding. Where does all that funding go? Originally, we had designed seeds to be more engineered than what it ended up needing to be. So we had originally decided that we'd be able to earmark funding to communities, where we can say, we're going to set a certain amount aside has to go to regenerative loans. A certain amount has to be for grants, and a certain amount can be open. So we wanted to be able to be a little bit more structured on how we put funding into pools. But as we evolved and went through this process, we realized we don't actually need that. Maybe that's over-engineering it, and it's not giving as much flexibility and freedom for communities. So instead we decided, nope, we're just going to fund them, and then those communities can use a DO to be able to set up their own circles and decide how to further distribute out these seeds they're getting. So in one community, we're saying the one in the 99th percentile, in this cycle they got 304,000. So that means that's the money that's going to come into your regional DO, which is going to look just like this, and that's going to be the funding that then you can use to put people into role archetypes. So we're talking about that. What about setting up a local permaculturist to just start planting trees in your community, or a local healer? Where's that funding coming from? It's coming from the seeds harvest, coming down into that region. Then that region can set up roles and they can receive funding. And these are all the tools that allow all of that to happen. All right, let me go back to the simulator here. And then we have the public global dues, which could be here. So you actually get to come in here and manually add more organizations. So each season when we come around, we can say, we have 10 global dues, and we can test out a whole bunch of different scenarios, seeing how many global dues we might be able to have and how much funding we might have available for them. So this way you can kind of add a bunch of different dues and explore some different scenarios here. But in this scenario, we're saying there's only 2 public organizations that are part of the Seeds Commons. We know that's not true. Currently there's 8, and there's probably going to be a lot more going forward. But you get to see that in this particular economic scenario, every lunar cycle, this DO is getting 18.5 million seeds, and this one's getting 4.6 million. So anyway, this economic simulator is how do we balance a growing economy if we're growing at 2.5% a year? What does that look like? How many new seeds do we have to create? And then how many seeds are distributed out through that economy in that scenario? So this way we can run a whole bunch of different assumptions, test the different percentages. So, what percent should people get? Is people too small here? Maybe 43 is too small, if the global DO is getting 18 million, maybe let's give more to people, or whatever. So this is what the simulator is about, for us to explore these questions and test assumptions. So that's how we have evolutionary economic systems. So I talked about this in more detail in episode 1, but just real brief. We're providing a bunch of different primitives that have different settings that can continue to be evolved. So that's what I was showing with the economic simulator. That helps us know how we might be able to change our settings, right? So anyway, here's some tokens that we started creating so far, and you can explore what they mean further here if you would like. Okay. Actually, this isn't the latest one. If you want to come to the latest update, come back to navigation here. Go to Seeds Foundation, click on Seeds Token Economics, click on Seeds Family Currencies, and here is the latest one. So what happened was gSeeds, which is what we were before, evolved into global seeds, constant seeds, and community seeds. So global seeds are ones that are probably still going to maintain volatility for a while. These ones are eventually going to have the harvest running. So when I just went through the simulator, all that's happening in the global seeds currency still. So we still have a model that, we can, let me see if I have a graph of it in here. Yeah, all right, so global seeds is still intended to run a course like this, where over time, and once that harvest gets going, we're testing these protocols and we actually start working things out, we can have a stable currency. But that might take multiple years, we don't know. It might be a pretty long time before we actually work that out, or until we actually want that and we find a lot of use in that. And potentially, and part of the conversation's moving this way, maybe we never want global seeds to actually be, stable. Maybe we want it to have 1% or 2% inflation or deflation. Maybe we want it to be a good store of value. So maybe we want a 2% deflation. But we definitely don't want that to be better than, holding value in natural capital, because that's one of the perverse things. If your currency, if it's better to hold a currency than it is to sustainably harvest a forest, you have a problem. So if sustainably harvesting a forest can earn you 10% year-over-year returns, but this economic tool, this currency, this digital token, can earn you 15%, now all of a sudden it makes sense to clear cut your forest and put all of that money into this token. We just made it so that it's better to turn our natural world into digits, right? But let's say you can sustainably harvest a forest at 10%. And if you hold on to this currency, you can gain 5% value. All right, now it's still better to sustainably harvest that forest, but this currency is still better to hold now than depreciating currencies. So maybe we want to do that. But separating it out into 3 currencies gives us that freedom to say maybe we want this currency to behave a different way than the currency that we want to be constant. So that's the second currency that's being created, is one that is constant today. Because communities are like, great, we love this constant currency idea, but we don't like that it's 5 years out in the future. We realized that, we took that into account, and then this working group worked diligently on figuring out a model to make that happen. And this is what that model is right here, so you can actually explore it in full detail. But then the constant currencies can be constant relative to other national currencies. So how it works in very short is if the official inflation for the US dollar is 10%, then buying this constant currency is going to pay you 10% in interest year over year. So it's basically offsetting the costs of inflation. And if you want to know how that works, read this article. The last one is community seeds. So how do communities distribute value locally, right? To create local resilient economic systems. There's a lot of value there in having currencies that work within organs and only within organs, like the currencies of our organs in our body, right? So then our whole ecosystem starts to look like this, where G is the global seeds that kind of connects everything. C is these constant clusters. So you might have a cluster in Europe that's using the euro as their constant currency because that's what they're familiar with, one for the pound, yen, dollars, etc. And then within that, you have all the different communities, and they might be using their own currencies. So that's where the O comes in. So you see that its own community, local currency happening here, but then when they come to another local community, they use the constant currency of yen, a yen constant currency, to distribute value between each other and have a reference point for understanding value between them. So that's really important. So that's, in a quick nutshell, the 3 currency model that we're working with. You can come here and explore it further in details. Okay, let's come down to contribution categories and types. This is another one of those primitives for economic systems. Again, we just asked this basic question. What if we could track contributing in a myriad different ways and then just distribute value out to those people who are contributing to people in society? Great. This can be remixed in a whole bunch of different ways, and we intend to remix this in a whole bunch of different ways. Flat money. So this is exploring that concept of an actual constant currency further in depth. So I was talking about this. What does it look like if central bank currencies are losing value? Investments go up in value. Some crypto assets, they're way too volatile. how do you have something that's actually stable? Because I could tell you a story. What would it look like if I bought a house 10 years ago and I paid with Bitcoin and I was expected to pay back Bitcoin today? But my pay and my salary is in dollars. Then my loan repayment would be orders of magnitude higher than it was when I actually bought that house. And that's unsustainable. So you can't use appreciating currencies for things like loans or to hold a stable economy on, because it tends to concentrate value again. So both inflationary and deflationary currencies tend to concentrate value. They just do it differently. So we needed something that was stable. So this was one of the original things we set out to do with Seeds, and you can explore more in detail how Seeds does that here and in the game guide. You can explore a little bit more about the harvest. So we've talked about this and how the harvest works, but to, again, simplify this in great detail. Bitcoin currently today, as an example, that's running, it's creating $13 billion roughly right now, dollars worth of Bitcoin every year, and 10 billion of that's going to pay electricity fees. The very basic idea is what if that money went out to a whole bunch of different contributions? So rather than the only contribution being hash power, burning electricity, what if that contribution could be something someone was grateful for, using gratitude, right? Or anything that we can track, which we've gotten into the contribution scores in more detail in episode 1, so I'm not going to do that again. Rainbow seeds. So this is what we call community seeds. So if you want to create all the different flavors of currencies, you can do so here. We're going to create a more beautiful dashboard that's branded and all that stuff. But for people who want to dive in today and get going, you can actually jump to the Community Currency Creator dashboard right here and go about creating a new currency for yourself. So you can come down here to create. You can say who the manager is going to be, who has the power to freeze it, and you just put in your blockchain account name. So that 12-character account name that you have, you can put it here. And then when you go to create QR, you click this button. You're actually, I don't have to, cool. So this isn't gonna work, but if I put in my account name, then I saw this QR code, I could scan this with the Seeds wallet or that Anchor app that I was telling you about, and it would create this token for you. All right, so then using this, I actually have the ability to issue that token. So I can issue the quantity that I want to make. So when I create a token, there's none. So I want to say, all right, I want the initial amount of this token to be 10,000. I create that QR code again, and I scan it, and then it'll issue those tokens. I can then enroll other people who are able to actually trade these tokens. So if I want to make it so only my friend group can actually, exchange these tokens and you can't send them outside of my friend group, then I can have permissioned accounts with my token system here. I could freeze tokens if I want to do that. We can redeem them. You can issue more tokens. We can set different permissions and all sorts of different things with this currency creator. And you can read the reference document here to learn a little bit more how to use this tool, should you choose to. And there's some more documentation on how it all works here. It's not a beautiful UI yet, no offense, because the guy who built it is an incredible contract engineer and not UI, and we're working on that. But we have this dashboard here for you to be able to dive in and start creating your own currencies. Highly recommend reading this article on Rainbow Seeds that dives into what that actually looks like. So the best parts of a local currency, kind of with the best parts of a global currency. And what does it look like when we merge these two concepts together and we get Rainbow Seeds? And we talk about what that actually means. So you can feel free to read this if you're looking at creating community currencies or doing anything up that route. Highly recommend this. Gratitude, we talked about that, so I'm not going to dive in more. All right, so those are kind of our economic tools for now. Some of the primitives that we built, some of the different tools that we have available for creating different types of economic systems. All right, next up is sense-making tools. So we have our dashboard. So this is all open. You can see the data space with all the information. So it's populating this, where the information is coming from. You can see the tool that was used to make it. And you can go to the dashboard itself right here. So everything we're doing within Seeds, we're trying to make as open source, as practical and feasible. So all the links to be found for all the different tools and technologies is in this here. So wait for this to load. Here it is. So here's the dashboard, kind of tracking the 3 main areas: people, planet, prosperity. So you see people metrics over here, a mixed metrics of ecosystem governance, important dates, are we ready for go live, elements like that. And go live is when the global seeds starts kicking off the harvest protocols. And we want to have a bunch of things tested. We want to have enough organizations and people active. We want to have a basic sized economy ready to turn the trigger so that when we start the harvest, we actually have an economic system. Because if that currency can only be used, for, speculation, because there's not enough marketplaces, there's not enough local communities to actually circulate that currency, then we don't really have a real economy. So go live is only when the actual real economy is ready, when we have enough businesses and enough products and services and all this stuff in our economy so that you can exit from central bank currencies into all of these new currencies we're talking about creating here. All right, so you can explore the dashboard a bit and see everything that's happening in the ecosystem. So this is that gratitude pot I was telling you about before. You can see there's 25,000 seeds in it for this cycle. All right, so you can learn more about the overview here and see what it's all about. More sense-making tools. We have the Passport forum. So I showed you the Passport already. I'm not going to take you back there, but you can learn more about the forum and how we can go there and make sense of the world. And the other co-learning spaces, so the Ambassador Academy, Renaissance Explorers, and Renaissance U. And you can learn more about those. Decision-making tools. So trust tokens. I already talked about this token. This is distributed out, but this is a different primitive. It's saying, what if governance was separate from the token that's openly tradable? So those who are familiar with crypto right now, most governance tokens can be bought and sold. For some communities that works. Plutocracy for them, or oligarchy, meaning governance by the wealthy, maybe that's the best way for them to make decisions as a community. Oligarchy, plutocracy is not inherently evil. It really comes down to what you're trying to accomplish, right? But all we've done as trust tokens is provided the ability for communities to make all sorts of different designs around how they want to distribute governance. So that's a decision-making tool, is trust tokens. And evolutionary democracy systems. So for example, liquid democracy, the ability to have tokens that represent your voice. So it's really interesting because if you're in the 99th percentile, you have 99 trust tokens. And if there's 4 different proposals that come up, you have 99 tokens to spend on 4 different proposals. So the best example I like giving of this is, what about the US? So the US is really polarized on topics. People might be familiar with their governance. For a while, they had a really hard time having gay rights pass because there was a majority of people who just didn't like the idea and they kept voting down on it. Because there's no cost to voting down on something. And similarly, there's no ability to really share how dedicated to an idea you are. So there was no ability for that minority who was having their rights restricted for them to more amplify their voice. So it was tyranny by the majority, so to speak. But what does it look like if you have 99 trust tokens and you have to decide, do we want to make gay rights legal or do we want to ban guns? Just to give a basic example. You might see that you have a completely different turnout for those proposals because then someone has to make the choice. Like, do I really care if gay people get married more than I care if I'm allowed to own my guns? And once you have people making that trade-off, the theory goes is that we can start having better decisions because then people only put their money where their value is. Sorry, put your money where your mouth is. That's a weird one because in this case, it's not money. You only put your value where your mouth is. So then you can actually express how dedicated to an idea you are by sending more tokens or sending less. But then this way, and what we've noticed over the years is people don't participate in things that they don't have an opinion on. Because what we wanted was collective intelligence, not collective ignorance, which is one of those things that's hard with democratic systems that are open. Is we need to start experimenting with this. So the liquid democracy idea is that you have a governance token and there is a trade-off of using that token to better express your opinion. And these are different experiments that we're running. Here's another one with weighted voting. So that you can say, hey, I'm 100% for this idea, I'm only 50% for it, I'm only 30%, and I can send more tokens or less tokens. So that people have an ability to express how for or against an idea is. You might have multiple option voting. So you can actually, in one proposal itself, it's saying, hey, we're not entirely sure the best idea. We want to use collective intelligence to figure out. We have 3 different options. And this proposal will fail if none of the options reach at least 60% support. So if there's not a clear winner between those 3 options, then the whole thing fails and we'll go back to the drawing board to try to figure out a better plan. And this way we can better sense as a whole ecosystem and organization where to go. So for example, it's like, should we increase inflation? Rather than saying just 1% and leaving it at that, and it's a very binary yay, nay, it doesn't happen, you could say, should we increase it by 1%, 1.5%, or 2%? And then we can voice in the community and use that collective intelligence process. We can have conviction voting, which conviction's an interesting one, which is a proposal stays up forever until it reaches a certain level of conviction. And you could say, yes, I'm for this. And the longer you're for it, the more points are going to add up in for it. So it's going to either take more time or more people being for it for a longer period of time before a proposal passes. And then after it builds that support, maybe it's a proposal this has been supported for a really long time and it's got a lot of energy behind it. It's harder to change these things. So this is, touching on, a very base of where we're at here, of experimenting with different ways of doing decentralized governance and giving people a voice. And then being able to use the governance process itself to continue to evolve it, which is what we're doing. So this is why we call them evolutionary democratic systems, because we can use direct democracy to evolve our direct democracy. We can also delegate our voice. So this is what's actually you're being seen here, is a way to be able to have someone else represent your voice in governance, should you choose. All right, peer swaps. So now those are the decision-making tools. Moving on to the financial tools that we have. So peer swaps is the ability to swap peer-to-peer. So let's say I want to swap from, I'm not going to mention any legacy financial tools, but insert legacy financial product here into Seeds. And I can actually set up an escrow account. That's what this peer swap tools does, is it sets up a tool that allows me to put up a sale order or buy order for Seeds for that payment method that I want. So let's say I want to accept it with $100 using insert payment method. I could put up a sale order there. And then when someone is willing to sell their seeds or buy seeds for $100, let's say buy in this case, they say, yep, I want to buy those seeds. And once they initiate that, then $100 worth of seeds leaves your account and goes into an escrow account. And then once they make the payment, you say, yep, I've received payment, and then the escrow account releases the tokens. So then that escrow makes sure everyone stays honest on both sides, which has been a huge issue in our peer swaps so far, is there's been a lot of scams in the community because someone's like, you know what, I'll send you the money, then you're going to send me the seeds, right? And then they don't. So this escrow mechanism makes it so both parties are more likely to stay honest. And we have a partnership coming up with Chariot Payments, who eventually we want to be able to do atomic swaps, meaning they happen instantaneously from central bank currencies into and out of seeds. So that's where eventually we want to go with this, so we can make it really easy to swap in and out of the legacy financial systems into the new ones. Because we know we have to reduce friction here in order to be able to welcome more people in, and for people to be able to make this real while they're transitioning, because not everyone can pay rent with dollars with seeds and all these new tokens that we're creating yet. So we need that bridge, and that's what all these financial tools are about, is about helping make that bridge a little bit easier for us all. You can come and talk about here where we talk about seed banks and different regional seed banks, where regions can come together, pool assets, collectively invest in local projects together, etc. And this Regen Shopping Assistant, which is a community-led project right now, so there's actually no organization holding it, I believe, but that might change. It's just some awesome volunteers building this, about getting a regenerative score when you're shopping online. So this is going to work with those bonuses. If you're more of a regenerative organization, both the person buying from you and when people buy from you, both parties earn more rewards for being more regenerative. So this is basically a plugin in your website that when you're shopping, we can start giving you hints, being like, hey, this organization's more regenerative than that one, so why don't you go and support them? It's better for you, better for them, better for the planet. Okay, so this is a short exploration into some of the tools that we're building. Highly recommend just coming to this page. Again, so this is our knowledge base, and diving deeper here if you would like to. Thanks.